A trauma-filled boy is left for dead by his classmates on a field trip turned isekai adventure, so he declares that someday he'll get his revenge if he manages to stay alive. Memori did not have an easy life in the slightest. His childhood was filled with trauma. On the outside, all seemed fine as shown by a family picture, but that was far from the case. The boy can be seen cradled defensively, trying to shield himself from his father's routine beatings, as he would give constant bruises from his kicks, and instead of a bed, the boy would sleep on the family's trash bags. As for his mother, she simply didn't care and didn't intervene, sometimes laughing at him. Memori is brought out of his musings and back to the world of the living. The class president is annoyed that Shogo Oyamada is messing with her again, this time taking her recently purchased book. Oyamada is known as the school bully and is currently harassing the girl because he finds her attractive. The rest of the class does nothing. Some are scared of the scrawny, loud boy, and others simply don't care as it doesn't concern them. This type of behavior seems to be normal and an everyday occurrence, but what is even worse is the negligent attitude of the teacher. The boy is willing to give back her romance novel if she agrees to exchange social media chat numbers. Some of the boys laugh and tell Oyamada to cut it out. Memori enterely thinks about the situation, as the people of low status in terms of popularity keep their heads down so they wouldn't be a target, while elites stay in the back and simply laugh from a comfortable position. The only semi-normal people are the Takao sisters and their apathetic teacher. Still, the morality of this class is terrible. Memori tried to stand up to Oyamada, but the bully reminded him of his status in the class for being a wallflower. Oyamada might have respected him if he had more of a backbone, but Memori quickly gets afraid. The most popular boy in the class, Takuto Kirihara, tells Oyamada to give back Ayaka Sogo's book as this was getting annoying. But he makes sure to let Memori know that it's not because he cares about his existence. Much to Oyamada's disappointed, as he wanted to pass the time by picking on their senpai, that being Memori. He calls the rich boy cool for his cold attitude and gets back to his seat. But the boy quickly picks on a new victim by repeatedly kicking the back of his seat, and he degrades the boy publicly, as even Memori senpai was willing to say something to him, but here he is being a waste of space. Yasu can only cower and repeatedly apologize. Finally, the teacher tells Oyamada to cut it out, but not because he cares. No, the terrible teacher flatly says to at least not do this while he's on duty, as the poor boy might actually end himself, in which case he won't help anyone from the consequences. Hearing that it was still cool for him to do his bullying, Oyamada agrees. Suddenly, a mysterious light Takuto cuts to the chase to summarize their situation. He asks what will happen if they refuse to fight the Demon Emperor. The goddess doesn't break her smile, as there is a reverse summoning ritual that can send them home. If they can obtain the heart of the Demon King, or collect the essence upon defeating the Demon King, she can send them back. Oyamada could care less about her country's problem, and yells as he won't do it. However, instead of being angry in any way, the goddess goes on her knees and begs them to save their world. The group feels a bit bad. Ayaka politely asks the question of how ordinary people can do something to an apparent Demon King. She tells them that they all have powers that other humans do not, as this is another world that can help bring out those latent abilities. Memori can't help but feel something about this is off. The goddess calls for a demonstration, so the guard brings out a sickly-looking man, devoid of all color, and three-eyed dire wolf that the soldiers struggle to keep on its chains. Soon, they unleash the beast, and it goes straight for the man, eating him alive. The class of students are frightened and look away from the sight. The goddess closes her eyes and begins to chant a holy spell, casting a fireball spell that incinerates every trace of the monster. The entire action makes some students scream out of horror. Even the more morally tainted students can't help but be shocked. But this smell of burnt flesh that makes you want to hurl and the display of power makes them understand that they are in fact in another world. At the top of the pillar, she has them step forward to discover the skills hidden within. The goddess would sit there and wait to see the crystal ball glow so the hidden power can be known. Congratulate the student and repeat the process. Each student seemed to have potential, but when it came to Oyamada, his glowed much brighter. When it came to Takuto, the crystal broke from his power as he's awarded the first S-rank hero. Soon, it's the class president's turn, and she, as well, shatters the appraisal crystal, signifying that she's indeed S-rank. The Takao sisters are next, and the colder of the two is the third S-rank hero. The goddess can only shutter from her good luck, as normally it's considered lucky to get one S-rank, but now she has 3, with plenty of A-rank heroes. Next is our ordinary protagonist Memori, and of course he's given the lowest rank, and the goddess sharply tells him to move along. Lastly, the class's biggest punching bag Yasu is the rare dark hero that has the potential to plunge the world into darkness. Afterward, the students learn how to check their status by saying open. Memori confirms that he's even less useful than your average NPC in Log Horizon. However, he notices an inherent skill called Abnormal Inflict Status Ailments. The ability allows him to paralyze and poison his enemies. The adult teacher who's trying to get in the goddess pants tries to tell Oyamada to pay attention, but the boy tells him off. As Oyamada is an A-rank hero and teacher shouldn't be talking to him so arrogantly, as he's a lowly D-rank hero. The goddess walks to the front of the class and announces an important ritual they must conduct. Calling Sir Memori to come forward, the guards roughly shove him to the designed platform. As an E-rank hero, he's off the lowest class. She remarks that in the past, the lowest rank hero always drags his betters. In time, arguments would take place amongst the heroes about what they should do with Hero. Eventually, 2 sides form, and it becomes an all-out civil war on whether to banish the hero or to protect him or her. So after some time, it's decided that they should start dealing with the person from the start. Memori has a bad feeling when she says they're going to deal with him. She explains that the ritual is to send him away to ancient ruins, where he must try and survive by himself. He asks if the place is dangerous, and the goddess doesn't make any attempt to hide her smile, as she reveals they've sent many criminals to the highly dangerous area, and none have come back. With almost 100% guaranteed fatality rate, Memori immediately tries to plead his case, saying he has an inherent skill called Inflict Status Ailments. But the goddess tells him that version has no value and would be useless on low-level demons. His stats are too weak to be of any use. Memori points out how messed up it is that she summoned him without consent and now wants to kill him. But Takuto interrupts and tells him to wrap it up since all the girls are tired, asking, doesn't he feel bad for making them wait? The rest of the class agrees, as all they can do is smile and tell him to die already. Except Yasu, who made his way over to him, who extends his arm to comfort the boy. In a flashback, it's shown that Memori was always there to offer the same after Oyamada bullied him. However, it turns out Yasu calls him a lowly peasant, not fit for to be in the presence of an A-rank like himself, nicknaming him Mr. Trash Hero. The goddess begins the ritual as the floor glows blue in a complex pattern. As a hero, she gifts him a leather pouch that has some unique skills meant for every hero. Aaka tries to pull on their former home's morality to try and get her class to stop the goddess, but it falls on death's ear. The goddess has no choice but to knock the girl out, then tell the others to witness what happens when you're born talentless. The abandoned hero Memori is enraged by her words and tries to use his paralyzed ability on her, but the weak power bounces off her barrier, which is a permanent protective barrier. Further mocking him and applaud he tried to attack a goddess. Takuto attack her with his own skill, as he wanted to test his skill, with the woman warning him not to make a habit out of it. The boys laugh at his pathetic exit, while the girls asked to wrap it up, as they're tired and need their sleep. Memori vows that he'll get his revenge on them for their betrayal, warning that if he makes it back alive, you'd better be ready. As the tears drop from his eyes, Memori remembers his inner demon telling him there was no point in pretending to be a good person. It was finally time to reveal his true nature. He utilizes his leather pouch as a flashlight after finding himself in a region so dark that he is unable to access his status panel. He then moves around until he stumbles onto a mound of split skeletons, at which point a monster appears behind him and attempts to attack him. Memori flees from his awful, meaningless life, but the monster follows him. Even though Memori senses that it is trying to kill him, he is strangely not afraid as he looks at the walking zombie. All he can think of in his mind are the horrible people who condemned him to death. In frustration, he desperately attempts to use his paralyzed ability, and it surprisingly works, so he quickly runs. As it's not clear as these monsters are low level, or just a miracle when it seems he's run far enough, he stops to get some air, only to face some mutated chicken CGI demon who wants to scare him to death. Memori is determined not to die and uses his paralyzed ability. It worked again. He opens his status screen and discovers that he's almost out of mana points. However, he uses his poison skill, which seems to work too, but it takes longer to activate. The last monster comes charging back now that the paralyzing effect has worn off. In the face of his impending death, Memori thinks of everyone who's mocked him and outright endorsed his death. He determines to beat them into a bloody pulp for not sticking up for him in his time of need. He is now determined to live.
Realizes he has to rely on his natural MP, but he has no idea what might happen to him once it runs out. He begins to panic a bit, wondering if this is why he's sweating. The creature screams and starts attacking Memori. He tries to use his paralyzed skill once more, but the game system informs him that he can't apply the same skill on a target repeatedly. Thankfully, Memori switches to put the beast to sleep. He realizes that he can't spam this ability. He can see the creature's health and notices that his poison is active, meaning he can stack abilities. Suddenly, more of these creepy demon chickens make their way waddling over. The boy is determined to fight back, so he throws his pouch to inflict status ailment, but it's as effective as you'd think. He goes and paralyzes as many as he can, but realizes he's almost out of his own MP. If he doesn't come up with a plan soon, he'll pass out. The creatures that he first encountered make their way to the front, now unaffected by his spell. But he has no plan and spams the same move from before, but this time it doesn't work as he's reached his mental limit. At that moment, the system calls out to him as he's leveled up, giving him back his MP. He focuses on the monsters ahead and paralyzes them. This causes them to die like the first one. He realizes that obtaining new skills is based on if he's used them repeatedly. After realizing all this, he's now able to use his skills on multiple moving targets. He grins as his luck has finally turned around. Even if the goddess is the only one unaffected by his skill, he has a 100% rate of surviving these ruins. Even so, he now has to manually use his poison skill on them one by one. All the monsters just look like experience points to him now. He opens his status menu and it's grown in size. As of now, he's level 258 with MP in the thousands, with all his stats at 7 and 74. Given how his ability works, MP is the most important stat, as without it, he could die. As he sits down to take a breather, the demon minions start dying one by one, increasing his stats as time goes by. In the end, his LV is in the 500. He sees a dead corpse and removes the black cloak. He takes a moment to look at his status bar, with his level now being in the thousands. In the coming days, he's forced to survive off monster meat, choosing to eat the eyeball. The process grosses him out, but he tries. He spits out the disgusting tasting feeling he'll die soon at this rate. He notices that there's a purple gem on his item bag from the goddess. He pours power into the bag and notices that it's gotten heavy. Inside, he's surprised to see beef jerky and a bottle of cola. He cries as it's the best stick of meat he's sucked on in days. He doesn't question why he got this, but is thankful. The days continue to go by inside the ruins. He now sits on the top of a winged creature with tons of now would-be prey all frozen in place. The scene really makes him look like an edgelord demon king plotting world domination. And he even talks like it once he poisons his targets. As he now feels bad for the mindless creatures, as if he's committing some type of terrifying act, like a true emo believes he's devoid of all humanity for committing a massacre. I guess bro has never heard the name Itachi Uchiha to realize he's a bit dramatic. He starts to remember his depressing childhood, where he hoped to take out his own parents, until his aunt and uncle came and saved him, and ultimately tried to give him a bit of normality. He then goes into another monologue about having to accept committing these crimes. Bro really needs to get some help. He prays to some random skeletons and moves deep into the ruins. After beating a creepy eyeball monster, he discovers a sealed room, and when he pours magic into it, he finds the skeletons of some dead couple. He apologizes and begins to loot from their corpse. Each room takes a large amount of MP from him as he finds another resting place of a fallen sorcerer. The old traveler is named Anglin Bathard, known as the Great Sage, known as the Hero of Darkness, the same as Yasu, who could be the strongest. He's angered upon reading his will, cursing the goddess as she's even more evil. In the end, he decides to loot what remained of the man, not caring about saving this world, or picking a side, as it seems it's evil versus evil in this world. Inside the man's bag was a book known as the Forbidden Arts Complete Set. As well as a scroll of magic, he figures that it must be important if a banished sage felt the need to hide it from the goddess. On the last page that was left out, he reads to beware of the Soul Eater, as this monster is what killed everyone here. Memori continues through the ruins, praying not to run into the Soul Eater, as that must have been the thing to kill the sage. At the end of the hall, he notices another door with a seal on it. He assumes that because it goes up, it might be the exit. The Soul Eater rests at the end of the hall that is in between him and the door. Memori spots a gem that rests at the temple of the monster head, as this must be the item he needs to escape. He rushes from his hiding spot to attack, but is swiftly shot with a laser that pierces his hand. This is the first time he's experienced damage in this world, leaving him a bit panicked. He wonders what he should do, as he really needs that gem to escape. He needs to speak his skill name in order to activate Inflict status, but that would give him away. The surround walls begin to shatter as the creature has awakened. Outside the ruins, a breathtaking young woman is looking around for a place to hide. She sees the ancient ruins and wonders if it would be safe to rest there. The Soul Eater begins to hover towards Memori, and once it gets close, opens its mouth to remove a pink-like substance. He realizes that this must be how all the others that died were disposed of. It's made apparent that the Soul Eater found all of this amusing. Breaking the wall nearby, the Soul Eater now emerges. Its loud scream makes Memori cover his ears. Memori paralyzes the zombie monsters, and it works, but he's unable to kill them even if they're half dead. This all makes the Soul Eater laugh, as it found the sight funny. The large head is really getting off on watching him suffer mentally, with him trying to act like he won't stoop to its level. The monster makes more of its puke soldiers to attack him, even though they barely move, all in an attempt to cause him more mental damage, and he puts on quite the pathetic show. The monsters even slap him, but actually do negative damage to him. Memori goes as far as to cry, begging for someone to save him. But just when the Soul Eater is about to bust the biggest nut, he stops the act to paralyze it. He then gives another dramatic backstory about how bad his life was, and how his aunt and uncle tried to keep him normal, but he must now accept his true nature, as he must remember what he was really like. Like, bro, do you even hear yourself, right? Like, what are you about to do if you go back home? Start stabbing people. No, you're not. You are not like that. He calls the rest of them background characters and uses poison. He now decides to taunt the Soul Eater by saying how it lost to a weak human, calling it rather pathetic in the end. In a sick light show, the Soul Eater now has to free the many souls it has tortured over the years, allowing all the people it's hurt finally rest in peace. And like at the end of Evangelion, the souls come out to thank Memori and congratulate him, with the last being the Dark Mage saying to get revenge on the goddess. He removes the gem from the Soul Eater and opens the door that leads to the outside world. At that same time, in the forest outside their castle, the students are collecting experience by defeating demonic monsters in groups. The three strongest at this time are Yasu, Oyamada, and Takuto. Takuto has now reached level 18, while Yasu seems to have fully embraced his role as the next Demon King hero. One of the girls from the class, named Kobato, doesn't feel she can handle this. Another girl slyly soldiers over to the girl like a fox. Her name is Ikusaba. She reminds the girl to call her by her first name, as she hates her family name. Asagi warns the girl not to get on her bad side, or she'll have the girl ostracized by 70% of the girls. She nicknames the girl as the class's little pigeon for her not being able to kill the smallest of creatures. She calculates the rest of the class is likely to fall apart thanks to the conflicting set of egos. This surprises Kobato, but Asagi continues as they've been assigned ranks from the start, like S rank or E rank, meaning those with shitty rankings are bound to be discriminated against, as their class isn't filled with morally right people, but instead greedy, self-centered people. Hugging the girl close, she informs her she's a B rank, and since Kobato is a measly D rank, she's better off joining her ranks. The Takao sisters will only stay together. Ayaka was their class representative and is an S rank, but her inability to adapt to the world will get her killed. Grabbing the girl even closer as she moves her hands over her body, she asks the girl to think about what side she'll choose. Grabbing her plot, she offers to help the class pigeon, signaling her girls they've chained up a monster and tell her to kill it. As the goddess originally sent them out on a test, and Kobato still needs to pass. Asagi says her group will get stronger together, or she can be disposed of like Memori. Kobato does the deed and defeats the monster. Asagi welcomes her to the team and walks off, but Kobato falls to her knees and begins to cry as she remembers a time when she found an injured cat and Memori was kind enough to save it, and when he needed saving, she did nothing. In another part of the castle, Aaka is still sleeping in her spacious bedroom. When she wonders about where she is, she feels a lingering pain from her stomach, and she remembers the punch the goddess gave her, and she cries over the death of Memori. Later, she appears before the goddess who apologizes for Memori's disposal, explaining that it's the Kingdom of Alion's strict policy to complete the ritual. After pretending to shed tears for her loss, the goddess informs Aaka that she has no time to mourn. As the ritual is still ongoing, while she was sleeping for days, the rest of the class left on a test to determine if they could defeat monsters. However, several have failed since then. Those who couldn't do it were disqualified, and since they suck, they'll have to be disposed of. Aaka figures out that this is their way of call them too weak. Aaka flatly tells her she doesn't agree with the way they handle things, but the goddess is barely bothered about her opinion. Aaka suggests that since she's a S rank and is seen as valuable to the kingdom, she'll use her abilities to make up for the students who couldn't clear the test so they can avoid disposal. The goddess praises her proposal as she expects such a response from a great hero. She extends a handshake to settle their differences and apologized about breaking back from her punch. They shake on it, and the goddess airs her high hopes for Aaka. But when Aaka leaves, she notices how cold the goddess's hands felt. In the dark forest, the blonde girl from earlier is now at the gates leading to the run since, but she ultimately decides against it and continues to run. The group that is chasing her is the sword god Magatas Bladen and Ashura the demon. The two are in a group of men called the Holy Watchers who've been tracking the Princess Knight. Ashura is excited about having some fun with her. Each of the men have their own opinion about what to do with the girl, but none of it is good. While Memori starts to form a plan about what weapon and people he'll need to join him, he sees a group of slimes. But what catches his attention is how even creatures that have little intelligence still instinctually gang up on those weaker. Even so, the little snotball has the spirit to fight back against its attackers, feeling a connect to the slime he steps in. He first decides to paralyze the bigger slime, then give them a small dose of poison. The poison was non-lethal, as he did this to get their attention, and he next commands them to leave. With his job finished, he leaves, but the little slime starts to follow him. On the journey, he's able to read something from the Forbidden Book that talks about improving the ability of slimes. He's able to now communicate with the slime and even names it Piggymaru, explaining that his goal is nothing but good old-fashioned petty vengeance. In the forest, the girl runs away from her attacks, performing a dance-like move with her sword, calling it Spirit Regalia. But instead of her facing the attackers, it's Memori. The so-called Holy Watchers demand that this disgusting worm go ahead and drop all his valuables and they'll spare his life. But the snake-like man declines as he announces he'll still die. The gross troll-like man with a face mask would rather enjoy his body as he goes both ways, but also agrees to kill him after, as he wants to hurry up so he can go to the town's brothel afterwards. The man with the large sword agrees, but puts in his own 2 cents with an even worse comment about what to do with their victim. So yay, this group is the biggest waste of human filth possible. Their mom should have swallowed them. As they talk about more off their terrible deeds about breaking a woman's mind, Memori tries to quietly back away from them, but they all turn to him as they haven't forgotten about him. Memori tries to beg while raising his arm, but his voice sounds like glass on a marble floor. This causes a man to attack. However, Memori activates his paralyzed skill, which thankfully works, meaning it's only useless on the goddess. While the men are frozen in place, he tells them they're nothing scumbags. The boy is now resolved to kill them and do the world a small kindness, casting poison. After looting their bodies, his slime is able to detect another person nearby. In the forest, the blonde woman is able to detect from the spirits of a great power nearby. The girl tries to attack, causing the slime to hide while Memori paralyzes her from behind. Memory says he's curious and would like to have a conversation with her. While she's paralyzed in place, he explains that he's not from around here and needs her to fill him in, so he uses his ability to free up her head so she can speak freely. Before she answers his question, she asks what happened to the men following her. So Memori says they're probably harassing the devil right about now. The girl asks if he took care of them by himself or had help from some allies, but Memori refuses to reveal his ally. She tells him she believes his answers so far, and Memori realizes how confident she sounds for someone stuck in a vulnerable position. After questioning her, Memori learns that he's in an entirely different kingdom than what the goddess said. Now he pulls out the magic scroll and asks if she knows anything about it. She tells him she can't read it either, but might know someone who can. She recommends someone called the Witch of Taboos. She possessed vast knowledge of forbidden subjects and was deemed too dangerous. She was then driven from her homeland. Interested, he wants to know where he can find this person. The girl says that she should now be in the land of golden-eyed monsters. The blonde woman thanks him for saving her life, and Memori tells her not to worry about it, as they're even and will split ways here. Looking at the girl, who was nice and for better or worse too honest, he sees his aunt in her. Her overly trusting nature always made him worried for her. The slime is shocked he didn't kill her, and Memori responds that he doesn't enjoy creating a slaughter, but will judge by what the person does. But still instructs his partner to watch his back. In the town, people share their disgusting thoughts about the former princess of the elf nation, Saras Ashrain. At the front gate of provincial city of Mills, Memori tries to enter the front gate. The female guard checks him for weapons. She assumes that he's a mercenary that's come to the ruins to make it big. When he gets the name of the town wrong, the guard calls him a country bumpkin, letting her guard down. As he walks by, he sees only a few people walking around. He calls the security lacking, as there were no pat-downs or luggage checks. He checks into the local inn and pays for a private room. The innkeeper informs him the cost is $2,000 a night. By his tone, he feels that he doesn't have a favorable appearance with him. So he offers to give him a tip, and he's more than happy to help him now. Deciding to go by the name Hadi Skull, in his room he hangs all of his clothes from his journey, as he now has a new set of clothes. At night, while he's walking, he notices that it's typical that the buildings follow a Western fantasy appeal. He looks at the standard Adventurer Guild and decides against it. He goes to enjoy some much-needed dinner inside of a tavern. The taste is a bit rusty, but better than thought, full of drunk, well-spirited people. The noisy idiots who basically give away much-needed information for free. According to them, the continent is full of monstrous knights in every nation. The men mention some of the strongest knights out there. Of the standouts have to be the Black Dragon Knights, who wiped out the entire empire with only their dragons can rival an entire army. He's heard enough and heads back to feed his slimy friend. He hopes to go back and find someone who can read the scrolls, reminding himself of the Witch of Taboos who can translate the forbidden spells. There's also the monster enhancement solution made from powdered bone of skeleton kings, with them being found in Mill's ruin. The next day, a man named Cred Herkley, or the Marquis, he says that he's recently uncovered a new floor in Mill's ruins. Whoever obtains the Dragon Eye Chalice that sleeps within the ruins will receive 300 gold pieces, showing a picture of a chalice. He also offers to pay for any other type of treasure they find and allows them to keep monster materials, which comes as a relief to Memori. They begin the registration process and split into lines when Memori notices a man who looks like he gets no maidens. The man tries to rizz up the blonde woman from the previous day, but his advances are unwanted as he starts harassing her, claiming to recognize her from somewhere. Recalling she's the famous paladin captain of a certain nation, so the crowd wonders if there is some truth to his words. Being Saras Ashran from the Holy Empire, Harmon says that she was beautiful, but she flat out rejected him. The woman denies ever meeting him. He's annoyed because he remembers this annoying attitude when he met her. Since then, he's burned it into memory, also her outrageous ripe plot armor, which is impressive. She tries to convince him she's not the girl he's looking for. He points out her ears, which are a clear sign she's an elf. He continues to say how she can fool idiots, but not him. He then pulls off her hood to prove his claims. But her appearance catches him off guard as she has human ears and a different face. He falls on his butt as he's proven wrong. The girl says her name is Mist Balukas. The crowd was sure that the man was correct, but now mock him for his behavior. Armin still doesn't give up or admit to any wrongdoing, admitting that he thinks that all beautiful women act the same and now vows to get revenge on Mist Balukas, truly a loser that should go to jail and get no work. Afterwards, Memori goes out to do some shopping. Out of nowhere, the same girl is now walking beside him. She questions him on if he plans on answering Marcus's call to go in the ruins. They both agree that they will. Memori tries to warn the girl to be careful, as that guy is one of those crazy types that will attack her. She unfortunately responds that from time to time she runs into people like him, so it sucks being an attractive woman. She'd rather perverts like him just hate her rather than compliment her to gain affection. She's only talking to him because he's intentionally keeping to himself, so he's a loner too. He decides to ask her to accompany him as he doesn't want to be overpriced for items and get swindled as he plans on entering the ruins. In exchange for some payment, as she admits that she's currently close to broke on traveling funds. The two shake hands on it and give their false names. Inside a weapons store, she helps to pick out the best items and then bargains the price. As payment, he hands her 3 silver pieces. She's surprised by the amount, but he says she saved him far more. Miss thanks him for his generosity. As she goes to leave, she suddenly collapses. Luckily, he's fast enough to catch her into his arms. Memori notices there are bags under her eyes. Signaling she's been lacking sleep, she admits to this and gets up to go. At the mill's ruin the next day, the cave is decorated with lights along the path. He sees 2 other mercenaries run away from ox demons, but it turns out to be miniature, like a version from the ruins of Disposal, which he easily is able to stop with his paralyze and poison combination attack. Taking a Keef out to finish the job, he continues into the ruins. He does this to hide the cause of death for other mercenaries to find, as they came hearing about a ox. But when they find it dead with a single blow from a dagger, they struggle to understand how it's possible. Memori doesn't feel any threat from anything in the ruins, concluding that all of the monsters are weaker than the ones in the ruin. After checking his status, he overhears the same idiot from the previous day, outwardly exclaiming that he would like to commit a crime on the girl that humiliated him in the plaza. Hiring some local assassins to take his revenge out on the hooded blonde woman, and when they ask how he wants it to look, he goes on a rant on how gruesome he wants it, and if she begs and is truly sorry, then to doing slower, which makes the hitman a bit uncomfortable. But after this guy does some weird dance, they speak up. And of course, what they say next about having fun with her isn't fun at all, as they want to play with her milk jugs, and the man assures them they can do whatever they like since she's just monster feed. Turning around, the men notice Memori, our hero calls the unworthy, irredeemable cattle. All 3 of the men want to kill him for trying to play hero, with it being common for folks to go missing in the ruins. Memori puts his hand up, then asks to be spared from them. The blonde man laughs at him for begging the moment he realizes he's outmatched, but refuses as it is too late, going in to swing his sword. Memori launches his paralyzing ability. Memori realizes his own villainy makes him sick because it reminds him of his parents abusing him. But killing scum like them does give him an odd, satisfying feeling in his heart. Armin then turns to try and beg for mercy, which now makes Memori laugh. He walks away pleased, laughing, as they've become monster food. Later, Memori has defeated a horde of monsters, as he's reached the second to the last floor and decides to rest. He goes to sleep on a slab of rock with his slime watching his body. 3 hours later, he heads out from his private room. On his quest, he runs into a group of mercenaries called the Saber Tigers. The group of 7 first would like to warn him of a strong figure killing a group of monsters. The leader explains that the monsters seem to be dying in strange ways, and no one can figure out what's hurting them, only that they're left looking deathly pale in order not to risk their teammates' lives. they've decided to pull out. So they offer him a chance to leave with them so he'd be safer, but Momori declines but thanks them. They warn him of other mercenaries he comes across. He can't help but think they're good people for extending this kindness. Momori has been reducing the competition to the last floor and finds a secret room with the dragon-eyed chalice. From his many RPG games, he realizes that the statue will activate some trap, so he paralyzes it, confirming his guess. He then poisons it and leaves it dying as he takes the chalice. But when Momori turns around, he finds Mist, who's surprised that he made it to the end before her. She still has bags under her eyes, showing she's tired. Momori offers her the chalice if she wants, but she knows it's not for free. In return, he tells her to get some proper sleep, but she can't accept this, insisting she must give something in return. She can't believe he'd be this sickly sweet for a beautiful girl. He denies this, as he was never interested in the chalice, as it was never his goal. On the pillar the chalice was on, he's able to open up a secret stairway going down. As he wanted the real final boss underneath, lurking below, she is stunned, as she was sure all parts of the ruins were discovered. But that's not the case. She offers to guard him, as this is the only thing she can offer. In exchange for the chalice and promises she won't be a hindrance to him, looking at her, he can tell she's not going to let this go and accepts her offer. But looking at her tired face, he has some conditions. First, they need to avoid small talk that would pry into each other's circumstances, keeping the nature of the two professionals of client and bodyguard. If she returns to the surface on her own, you won't be responsible for her. She agrees and vows to protect her client with her life. Inside, a plant-based monster is soon sliced apart, showing off her skill with the sword. She notices his stare on her skin and asks what's the problem. Momori is curious about monsters with golden eyes. She answers by saying that monsters with golden eyes are a sign of the monster's experience, but recognized as the perfect prey for heroes from another world to level up, as they gain no experience from defeating people, which explains why the scum that he's eliminated have added to any experience for him. Some are capable of forming positive relationships with humans. Mist says that a legend, the Demon King, who's rooted in evil, radiates a special energy. His essence, in monsters closely influenced by it, turned golden-eyed. This instinctually makes the creatures more violent. Momori thinks that the golden aura from glow, as it's an ominous sign that reminds him of the strongest hero in his class, Takuto. He opens the next floor of the chamber to rest when she points out the presence of a strange monster. Momori then reveals his slime companions who's friendly. Then, he suggests she get some rest. She's against it, but eventually listens to him and lies down. Sir Piggymaru is able to distract her long enough for Momori to cast a sleep spell on her. Letting her guard down, he's able to see her true form, confirming to Momori that she really is the former Night Elf Paladin. At that same time in the dark forest, the Black Dragon Knights find the corpses of the unholy men. They know the girl is skilled, but know she couldn't have killed them so skillfully.